Your backyard didn't empty out tonight. It just switched to a version of itself you've never seen. Every evening, the same thing happens in your backyard, and most people never really notice it. One moment, there's a cardinal at the feeder, a robin working the lawn, sparrows moving along the fence line. Normal activity. The kind of thing you'd glance at and not think twice about. And then, in less than 20 minutes, all of it stops. The feeder sits untouched. The branches stop moving. The whole yard goes still, almost like it's been switched off. But here's the thing, those birds didn't go anywhere. Right now, while your yard sits in silence, the birds that were there an hour ago are doing things that would genuinely surprise you. Some are slowing their own bodies down to survive the night. Some are packed into spaces so small you'd never think a bird could fit. And somewhere above your roof, there's a real chance that thousands of birds are passing overhead in complete darkness, and you'll never know it happened. What backyard birds actually do after dark is a part of their lives that most of us live next to for years without ever seeing. So let's go through it, and by the end, that quiet backyard at night is going to feel very different. And what makes this even more interesting is that nothing in your yard is random. Every tree, every bush, every fence line becomes part of a hidden map the moment the sun disappears. A map that only works in darkness. Most backyard birds don't travel far at all when the sun goes down. A cardinal that was feeding in your yard this afternoon might be settling in for the night just a few hundred feet away, tucked deep inside a thick shrub, a dense evergreen, or a tangle of vines. But what matters most isn't distance, it's concealment. As daylight fades, birds shift from a foraging mindset into survival mode. Their priority changes from finding food to avoiding being seen at all. Even familiar spaces suddenly become risky, because at night, predators gain the advantage. Owls, cats, snakes, even nocturnal mammals. They all operate with an advantage birds don't have in darkness. So birds respond by essentially removing themselves from visibility. What's fascinating is that this is not random hiding. Birds actually assess microstructure in vegetation. They choose branches that reduce silhouette visibility. They avoid open sky exposure. They prefer clustered environments where shadows overlap. It's almost like they understand geometry of darkness. So instead of choosing open branches or exposed perches, they deliberately search for depth. Layers of leaves, overlapping branches, anything that breaks their outline. And these decisions are surprisingly consistent. Many birds don't just pick a new spot every night. They build routines. The same cardinal or sparrow may return to the same sheltered corner of your yard repeatedly, forming a kind of invisible schedule that runs parallel to your own. This is where your backyard becomes something else entirely. Not a single space, but a layered system of sleeping zones, feeding zones, and escape routes. That means parts of your backyard aren't just green space. They're mapped, memorized, and reused every night as sleeping zones. And the most unsettling part is how close they often are. Sometimes just outside your window, in places you would never think to look twice. Even a small bush near your gate might be hosting the same bird every night without interruption. This next one sounds almost made up until you think about how small some of these birds really are. A chickadee weighs next to nothing, and yet it can survive a freezing night outdoors without any shelter from the cold beyond what it finds itself. What makes this possible isn't toughness. It's control. On especially cold nights, chickadees can deliberately lower their own body temperature, entering a controlled state where their metabolism slows dramatically. Their heart rate drops, breathing becomes minimal, and energy consumption falls to a fraction of daytime levels. This is not passive survival. It is active regulation. The bird is constantly balancing energy loss versus survival time. Think of it like a biological calculator running every few minutes. It's not sleep in the human sense. It's more like shutting down non-essential systems to preserve fuel. But this comes with risk. Dropping too low means they may not recover by morning. So it's a precise balance and internal calculation repeated every night based on temperature, wind, and stored energy. And here's something most people don't realize. Smaller birds lose heat extremely fast because of their surface area to volume ratio. That means a chickadee is constantly fighting physics itself. Where they choose to do this matters just as much as the process itself. Tree cavities, hollow branches, and abandoned woodpecker holes all provide microenvironments that trap slightly warmer air. Even a difference of a few degrees can decide survival. In extreme cold, birds may even rotate positions inside cavities so the warmest spot is shared. To us, those spaces look empty. To them, they are engineered survival pods built entirely by chance and nature. Here's one that catches almost everyone off guard. Bluebirds are famously territorial during the day, chasing off other bluebirds, defending their space without hesitation. Their behavior suggests separation, competition, and strict boundaries. But night completely reshapes that logic. On harsh or freezing nights, several bluebirds may enter the same nest box together, not out of cooperation in the human sense, but out of necessity. Heat loss is the real enemy, and a shared enclosed space becomes significantly warmer than facing the night alone. This behavior is driven by physics more than biology. The smaller the air volume, the slower heat escapes. So birds instinctively compress themselves into safer thermal zones. Wrens do the same. Chickadees often cluster in cavities. Some species even pile into overlapping positions just to reduce heat loss. What's important here is how quickly behavior adapts. There is no gradual transition, no negotiation. The moment conditions cross a survival threshold, instincts reorganize priorities instantly. And interestingly, these group sleeping spots are often reused. Birds remember thermal efficiency. They return to places that kept them alive before. That means your nest boxes, birdhouses, and even dense hedges are not static objects in a yard. They are flexible shelters that switch roles depending on temperature, season, and risk. During the day, they are territory markers. At night, they become survival clusters. Even when a bird looks completely asleep, it often isn't, not entirely. Birds operate with a level of environmental awareness that never fully shuts off. Many species use a form of unihemispheric sleep, where one side of the brain rests while the other remains alert to external signals. This allows them to stay in a state that is physically resting but neurologically responsive. This system is extremely important in open environments where total vulnerability could mean death within seconds. So even in total darkness, inside a tree cavity, or hidden within leaves, a bird is still processing fragments of its environment. A sudden rustle, a vibration through a branch, or the movement of a predator can trigger immediate readiness. And this response is not slow. It is instant. There is no waking up phase. The bird is already partially alert at all times. This is why stillness in a backyard is misleading. What looks like inactivity is actually distributed vigilance. Instead of one centralized awareness, there are multiple small systems quietly monitoring the environment from different points in space. So your backyard at night is not empty. It is silently alert. Have you ever heard a bird singing well before sunrise or even in the middle of the night, especially somewhere with a lot of streetlights? That behavior is often a direct response to artificial lighting. For birds, natural light is the primary timekeeper. It regulates feeding, movement, singing, and sleep cycles. But when artificial lights extend or distort perceived daylight, their internal timing begins to shift. In urban and semi-urban environments, night no longer has a clear boundary. There is no pure darkness anymore, only gradients of light. A robin near a bright streetlight, for example, may interpret the environment as early morning even when it's still deep night. This can trigger premature singing, movement, or restlessness. And while it might seem harmless, this disruption creates a mismatch between behavior and environment. Over time, this can affect migration timing, breeding cycles, and energy balance. But the influence of light isn't uniform. Some birds adapt quickly, others become disoriented, and some simply adjust their entire schedule around human-made illumination. So in many neighborhoods, night is no longer truly dark for birds. It's a layered environment of shifting light levels that never fully matches natural cycles. This last one is the biggest, and it's the one most people never think about at all. During migration season, the sky above your home is not empty after sunset. It becomes a highway. Millions of birds move through the air at night, navigating using a combination of star patterns, magnetic fields, and learned directional memory. This movement is continuous, silent, and largely invisible from the ground. What makes it even more remarkable is scale. On peak migration nights, radar systems can pick up entire cloud-like formations of birds moving across region, expanding and shifting like weather systems. These are not individual journeys happening separately. They are massive, synchronized flows across continents. And most of them are species you already recognize. Birds that spent the day in your backyard may spend the night flying over entire countries. They navigate without maps, without light, and often without stopping for hours. And yet they arrive. There is something almost surreal about that overlap. The same bird that disappears into a hedge at dusk could be crossing mountains or coastlines just hours later. And then, as dawn approaches, many of them land again, sometimes in the very same yards they left behind, as if nothing extraordinary happened at all. So when your backyard goes quiet at dusk, nothing has actually disappeared. The birds have simply stepped into the other half of their lives. The half spent hidden in the branches a few feet from your window, slowing their bodies down to survive the cold, packed together for warmth, half listening through the dark, or quietly passing overhead on a journey hundreds of miles long. Next time your yard falls silent after sunset, you'll know what's really going on. They never left. They just moved into the part of the world you don't usually get to see.